Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Julie here, and I would like to welcome you to my Crackin' the Whip three-part training video series for nurse aide instructors. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about time management. But before I get started, as always, I'd like to remind you to smash that subscribe button, kick the like button on this video and all of my other videos, and don't forget, ring that notification bell if you'd like to be notified whenever I upload new content. The three most common concerns nurse aide instructors express are student behavior, time management in the classroom, and creativity. In this first of three video series, I'm going to talk to you and give you tips and strategies that could help you consume time in your classroom more effectively. One of the key elements in consuming time more effectively in your classroom is the declaration, implementation, and maintenance of classroom guidelines. Not only will these guidelines give your class structure and framework, it will also give you, in the words best put by Janet Jackson, control. I will tell you this, in my classroom, I never use the terms rule or rules. And you're probably asking why not, right? Well, I'm going to tell you the reason why I do not prefer this term is because rules tend to set off negative energy. You know, it really does. It tends to set off negative energy. And I just don't like that word, right? And you know how the old saying goes, rules were made to be broken, right? So I'm going to start off with the definition of these two terms, and that will probably give you a better explanation or a better vision as to why I do not use the term rules. Okay, here we are. So rules are used to exert, now listen to this is the key word, control on the way things are or the way things should be done. Now, take a look at the definition of guidelines. Guidelines are information intended to, here's the key word, advise people on how something should be done or what something should be. Guidelines are intended to be periodically reviewed and updated. Now, just looking at those guidelines, right? Rule, the definition of rule sets off, I don't know, it just feels heavy, right? Feels really heavy. You know, these are used to exert control. That's so much heaviness and so much negativity, whereas guidelines are information intended to advise. Guidelines are more, uplifting and upbeat and so much softer than rules. So that is why. Right now, I'm going to give you an example of classroom rules versus classroom guidelines. Now, take a look at this. Classroom rule, no cell phones. As a guideline, the use of cell phones during instruction is prohibited in an effort to lessen distractions. So you see, with guidelines, I'm not only telling the person not to use their cell phones during instruction, but I'm also giving them the reason why the cell phones should not be used. And the best part about it is that there's really no negative in the classroom guideline. But if you look over at the rule, the very first word is a negative, no, right? Don't you get tired of people telling you no, or you can't do this, or don't do this? So take a really good look. Take a really good look. Classroom rule, no cell phones. Classroom guidelines, the use of cell phones during instruction is prohibited in an effort to lessen distractions. Let's take a look at another one. No talking. Guideline, Keep sidebar chatter at a minimum. You do not want to miss something important, right? So you're going to have sidebar chatter. You really are. There is no way you're going to have complete control over sidebar chatter, but you can have control over lessening the sidebar chatter, okay? And then look at the explanation, right? You don't want to be talking while the instructor is talking because you're going to end up missing out on something important. Let's take a look at another one. No vulgar language, right? You know what? If you're teaching millennials, even adult learners, okay, a vulgar word is going to come out once or twice, all right? It's going to come out once or twice. But what I'm talking about is that you don't want your students' every word to be a quote unquote bad word, right? No vulgar language. Now look at the guideline. Be respectful and considerate of others. The use of obscene or vulgar language may offend your instructor and classmates. Y'all see the difference between rules and guidelines? When you tell someone no, you can't do something, or no, you shouldn't do something, how high do you think their expectations are going to be to try to break that rule? But now, if you look at the guidelines, and remember, guidelines were intended to be periodically reviewed and updated, right? But if you look at these guidelines, they're so much softer. They bring out more positive energy, and your students are going to be willing, to follow these guidelines, right? Especially because these guidelines give an explanation as to why you do not want them to do certain things. All right. So I'm going to leave this slide up just for another second or two so you can really get a good vision of classroom rules versus classroom guidelines. And while you're looking, I'm just going to reread the definition to you. Rules are used to exert control on the way things are or the way things should be done, versus guidelines are information intended to advise people on how something should be done or what something should be. Guidelines are intended to be periodically reviewed and updated. So if you have classroom rules, I'm going to put a big red X on that. Get rid of them. Get rid of that term, rules. Classroom guidelines gets a big fat green check mark. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some guidelines on how to declare your classroom guidelines. All right, number one, you have got to declare these guidelines day one of training. The very first day your students file into class, that is the first thing, after of course you welcome them, that you will want to do, okay? Declare your guidelines. Day one. If you wait a couple of days or a week, your students are going to have a harder time adhering to these guidelines because for an entire week, they've been coming in and doing what they want. Now you're trying to tell them a week later, you got to do this or you can't do that, right? So day one is when you should declare your guidelines. Hey, number two, student participation. You want your students to also participate in the declaration of guidelines. Why? Because this is going to give your students ownership to these guidelines, right? What I do is I'll have about 5 guidelines already in place. Okay, 5 guidelines. I will then ask my students to tell me what they think some guidelines should be. Okay, and actually that vulgar language guideline, that was actually given by one of my previous students, right? And I'm like, wow, that's awesome, right? But it's going to give your students ownership of these guidelines. It's one thing for the instructor to say, okay, I don't want to see any cell phones, or, whatever other guidelines you may have. And it's another thing when your students actually help declare these guidelines, and it will give them a sense of importance, because they can say, hey, that's the guideline I thought about, right? And again, I can't express this enough. It will give your students ownership over these guidelines. So please, when you declare these guidelines, day one of training, also include your students, okay? Also include your students. To take it a step further, what I like to do is I like to put the guidelines on paper. Yes, I put them on paper. And to take it a step further, I also add a signature block, right? I have all of my students sign the guidelines. I am this school year, I'm taking it a step further, because not only will I be having my students to sign off on the guidelines, I'm sending these guidelines home to their parents, so their parents can also read what the guidelines are and also sign, okay? And then once it's returned to me, I place it in their student file. Now get this. What I also do is I make it as an extra credit grade, right? Make it as an extra credit grade. What student does not want to receive an easy 100? Tell me, okay, right? So this is an easy 100. You give them an incentive to get those papers back home, get them signed by their parents, and get them turned in before the week is out, right? Give them an extra credit grade of 100, okay? And I can guarantee you're going to have those papers back within 2 days, okay? Maybe even one, all right? So again, remove the negatives. Remove all the no's and the cannots and the do nots, okay? If you have to refer back to the slide where the rules versus guidelines slides, go ahead and, rewind this video, take a picture of that slide, so you can, know how to word your guidelines, so it won't be or feel so threatening to your students, okay? You also want to reiterate the guidelines throughout the training cycle. I know for the first week, what I did is I reviewed the guidelines with my students. I would actually have students come up to the front of the classroom and recite the guidelines to their classmates. So that's another thought that you can do, okay? But it's really important that you do reiterate the guidelines throughout the training. Okay, so is one thing to declare the guideline. Okay, you can declare guidelines all day long, but if you don't implement or maintain those guidelines, the declaration is useless, right? So you want to make sure that you declare, you implement, and you maintain. And how do you maintain those guidelines? You maintain them by giving your students rewards when those guidelines are being followed, and disciplining those students who are not following those guidelines. Now, any disciplinary measures, that's on you all, how you want to discipline your student. Do you catch them on their phone? Do you want to take their phone up? I personally would not, because I don't want to be responsible for anyone's cell phones or any other electronics, right? But are you going to send them to the front office? Whatever your disciplinary action or measure is, that is for you to decide, okay? So let's review these again. You want to declare your guidelines day one of training. You want to make sure you include your students, okay? This will give them ownership of the guidelines. Put these guidelines on paper, people. Put them on paper and have a signature block. So if you're teaching millennials, you'll not only have their signature, but you'll also have their parents' or guardian's signature also. If you have adult learners, of course, you don't need their parents' signature, but you want to make sure you place a signature block on that document so your adult learner can sign, okay? And then you give a copy of the guidelines to your student, and then you maintain a copy in their student file. Remove all the negatives. Again, you can rewind this video, take a snapshot or a screenshot of that slide so you can see how to word your guidelines to make it more positive and make them more inviting and welcoming. You want to reiterate these guidelines throughout the training cycle. Remember, if you don't implement and maintain the declaration of these guidelines, it defeats the purpose, right? It defeats the purpose. And then as far as rewarding, your students when they're compliant with the guidelines and disciplining them when they are not, whatever measures you see fit for your training program, that is on you all, okay? That is on you all to decide on what measures, reward measures and disciplinary measures need to be taken, okay? All right, so I'm going to give you some more strategies for managing time in the classroom, okay? So before class starts, you want to make sure that you set up or rearrange your classroom. So for instance, if you're having some sort of group activity and you need to divide or set up your tables or move your desk around, do that before class starts. What I like to do at the end of the day, I go ahead and set my classroom up for the next day's instruction. Okay, that's what I do. All right. Then you want to, if you're having group discussion or a group activity, divide your students into groups before class starts. Okay, and then you can either have the groups written on the whiteboard, or you can set up placards on the table with the students' names. So as they file into the classroom, they can go directly to wherever the group sitting or where their name is at the group sitting. Okay, that's going to alleviate a lot of chaos. Okay. Then you want to write information on the whiteboard. If you have like tons of information, maybe you're doing vocab or acronyms, okay, and you're writing down the meaning of the acronyms or the definition of the terms. Don't do that while you're instructing. Go ahead and have it already written out on the whiteboard, okay? That's going to save you a lot of time. That way, if you have any other key points that you see fit or that you think the students would need to know, it's not going to take up a lot of your time, jotting down 1, 2, or 3 words, okay? So let's on here. All right, so the distribution of handouts and supplies, even when on test day, when I administer a module test, I'll already have their test laid out on their tabletops in front of their chairs, okay? And the bubble answer sheet, I already have that all laid out. Any informational packets, any resource packets, I already have it distributed, okay? So I won't have to worry about doing that when they come into class, because that usually takes a good, 2 minutes to do it, okay? So you want to go ahead and have everything distributed and handed out prior to the start of class. If you're using any types of props or again supplies or equipment, you already want to have all of that set up too, okay? And then positioning yourself. You want to make sure that you position yourself in the area where most of the supplies or equipment that you're going to be using is right at hand. Okay, because if, let's say, your whiteboard is to the front of the classroom, if you position yourself to the back of the classroom, you have to think about how many seconds it's going to take for you to walk up to the front of the classroom to get to that whiteboard. And I know you're probably saying, oh, well, it's only going to take about like 5, 6, maybe 10 or 12 seconds for me to walk from point A to point B. But if you're continuously doing that, that's taking up a lot of time. That adds up to minutes, okay? So position yourself to where you are centered, okay? Centered around everything that you need, okay? Hey guys, as always, keep in mind, again, this is the philosophy that I teach by and instruct and train by every single day. Your students' performance is a reflection of your teaching, your instruction, your training, and your leadership. You need to eat, drink, think, breathe, and instruct by this philosophy every day you step into your classroom. Every single day. Okay? And you think about it. Think about it. If you have a low pass rate, okay, what is that saying about you as an instructor? Think about it. If you have a high pass rate and you're maintaining that pass rate, what is that saying about you? Right? You get what I'm saying? Are you hearing me, people? Are you hearing me? Right? I would rather be an instructor that has high pass rates, okay, even if they're sustained, let's say they're sustained at 94%, at least I'm maintaining that pass rate. That's saying something good about me that I'm able to maintain, the percentage that I have, right? And basically that's saying that I'm satisfied, right? I'm a satisfier. But if you have an instructor who you see their pass rate is continuously increasing until they get 100%. And when I talk about pass rates, I'm talking about first time pass rates. Okay, first time pass rates. Okay, you get to that 100 and then you're maintaining, you're a maximizer because you've not only satisfied, okay, you not only satisfied your students or the process in which it took them to get to that 100% first time pass rate, but now you are maximizing that because you're maintaining it. Okay, whereas if you have a low pass rate, a low first time pass rate, and each and every training cycle is the same, y'all think about it. Okay, think about it. It's time that you look in that mirror. Okay, time you look in that mirror and try to, stop being a satisfier and become a maximizer. Okay, and actually I'm going to do a training video presentation on the satisfier and the maximizer. It's going to be a real interesting clip, okay? But anywho, again, your students' performance is a reflection of your teaching, instruction, training, and leadership. Eat, drink, think, breathe, and instruct by this philosophy every single day you step your foot into your classroom. Hey, there's my contact information. If you'd like to reach out to me and connect with me, my business email is JulieReynolds@natsapconsultant.com. Connect with me on my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/C/Julie Reynolds Consultant. This YouTube channel is for nurse aid students and candidates. However, there are several nurse aid instructors who are a part of this community. And I'm telling you, you subscribe to my original YouTube channel, it's going to open your eyes. It really is. It's going to open your eyes because you're going to see all the comments that I'm receiving from, these students and candidates. And like I said, a lot of these comments have me shaking my head and shaking my finger at instructors I don't even know, okay, that I've never met. But yeah, you want to check that channel out. You can also connect with me on my Facebook or at my Facebook community at www.facebook.com/NatSap instructor. That's NATCEP instructor. And then visit my Etsy storefront at www.etsy.com/shop/smashfads. Again, I do have my Smash That CNA exam book. As for, I think the price is $35.50. That is the digital download. So once you purchase it, it is available for immediate download. Okay. And trust me, you want to get that book. Okay. You want to get it. A lot of stuff you can use to implement or integrate into your training or instruction with your students. All right. Hey guys, before I leave, I just want to thank you for giving me your support and subscribing to this channel for instructors. If you know any other instructors that could benefit from this course, any other teachers or trainers, please lead them to my channel and have them to subscribe also. Okay. I will talk to you all later. Ciao.